Kindergartners, I hope you're doing well today. For today's lesson in reading, I'm going to share with you 2 stories in one video. But there's a reason why we're going to do it that way. And it's not just because I love reading books better than most of the things that we do together. The reason why we're going to read 2 stories in one video is because we're going to do something called comparing and contrasting. Comparing and contrasting is when we look at 2 things and we tell how those things are alike and different. And today, when we do that, here's the purpose or the reason why we're going to do that. We're going to compare the story Days with Frog and Toad, or actually one of the stories from inside this group of stories, to the story Frogs and Toads in Tadpoles 2. We're going to talk about how both these stories are alike, and we're going to talk about how they're different. And we're going to try to figure out which one of these stories is make-believe, or we could call it fiction or fantasy, and which one of these stories is an informational story, or we might call it an informational text. Which one is full of facts that we can prove? All right, here we go. Let's start with Days with Frog and Toad. Now this one is actually a collection of stories, and I think I'll just read the first one in this. But these stories are so good we might have to read another one on another day. Here's my table of contents. It tells me where the different stories inside of the big book are found. And the first one, called Tomorrow, is on page 4. Tomorrow. Toad woke up. "Drat," he said. "This house is a mess. I have so much work to do." Frog looked through the window. "Toad, you are right," said Frog. "It is a mess." Toad pulled the covers up over his head. "I will do it tomorrow," said Toad. "Today I will take life easy." To take life easy means he's not going to do a whole lot that day. Frog came into the house. "Toad," said Frog, "your pants and jacket are lying on the floor." "Tomorrow," said Toad, from under the covers. "Your kitchen sink is filled with dirty dishes." Oh, I hope you can't see my sink from behind those beautiful flowers. God, I think it hides my dirty dishes. "Tomorrow," said Toad, "there is dust on your chairs." "Tomorrow," said Toad. "Your windows need scrubbing," said Frog. "Your plants need watering." "Tomorrow," cried Toad. "I will do it all tomorrow." What do you predict? Do you think Toad's going to do it tomorrow? Toad sat on the edge of his bed. "Blah," said Toad. "I feel down in the dumps." "Why?" asked Frog. "I'm thinking about tomorrow," said Toad. "And I'm thinking about all of the many things that I will have to do." "Yes," said Frog. "Tomorrow will be a very hard day for you." "But Frog," said Toad, "if I pick up my pants and my jacket right now, then I will not have to pick them up tomorrow, will I?" "No," said Frog. "You will not have to." Toad picked up his clothes and put them in the closet. "Frog," said Toad, "if I wash my dishes right now, then I will not have to wash them tomorrow, will I?" "No," said Frog, "you will not have to." Toad washed and dried his dishes and put them in the cupboard. I hope he stops by my house and starts washing dishes. "Frog," said Toad, "if I dust my chairs and scrub my windows and water my plants right now, then I will not have to do it tomorrow, will I?" "No," said Frog, "you will not have to do any of it." Toad dusted his chairs, he scrubbed his windows, and he watered his plants. Okay, it's moving along. "There," said Toad, "now I feel better. I am not in the dumps anymore." Do you know what it meant that he was in the dumps? It meant he was sad. You're right. Very good. You figured it out from what was going in the story. On in the story. "Why?" asked Frog. "Because I have done all the work," said Toad. "Now I can save tomorrow for something that I really want to do." "What is that?" asked Frog. "Tomorrow," said Toad, "I can take life easy." Toad went back to bed. He pulled the covers over his head and he fell asleep. I hope you enjoyed that little story about days with Frog and Toad. We're going to talk about it a little bit more in a minute. Did you learn any lesson from this story? Good, and you learned that we shouldn't put things off, should we? We should do things as soon as we can so that we don't feel sad about getting too behind on our work. All right, boys and girls, let's keep learning with this story, Frogs and Toads and Tadpoles Too. This story is by Alan Fowler. Look at this bullfrog croaking. Oh, I can see, look at the skin right here. Most male frogs and toads puff up their throats and make a sound. Not all frogs and toads make the same sound. Can you see how he puffed up his throat right there? Yeah, that has to do with how he makes that sound. There are little tree frogs called spring peepers that peep. Look at him. In Texas, there are frogs that bark like dogs. The green frog makes a twanging sound like the bass string of a banjo. See those two different frogs there? Get a good look at those. Frogs and toads are amphibians. That means they live both on land and in water. See them there? Frogs are usually found around marshes, ponds, and other wet places. Toads live mostly on dry land. So now we know one of the differences between frogs and toads. Frogs have shiny, smooth skin. Toads have rough, bumpy skin. Oh, we're learning even more about them. Both are often brownish or dark green in color, with stripes or markings in other colors. Look at that. I have a book about the different colors that frogs come in. We should read that one. I think you'll find it fascinating. But some frogs are bright green, blue, white, red, or yellow. Frogs can jump further than toads. Look at that action picture. Look at them. Woo, going through the air. Many frogs have webbed feet that help them swim. Tree frogs have special pads on their toes that help them climb. So we see how the frog is adapted to swimming with its webbed feet, and here the toes that help it climb better. Most toads and frogs lay their eggs in water, where the eggs hatch into tadpoles. A tadpole looks like a fish. It has gills for breathing under the water and a tail. We read a book yesterday about tadpoles, didn't we? Remember Curious George? I remember it talked about the tail on the tadpole then. After a while, the tadpole begins to grow legs and to lose its tail. Its gills are replaced by lungs, and it can breathe air just like you do. It can live out of water. Boys and girls, did you know that your lungs are what help you breathe air? They're called an organ inside of our body. It's part of our respiratory system. It can shoot out its long, sticky tongue and catch insects to eat. Now it's a toad or a frog. They both can do that. Words to know. These are all words that were found in this story. This is called a glossary. This one's a picture glossary because it shows us a picture of these things. Frog, bullfrog, spring peeper, toad, webbed feet, frog eggs, tadpoles, and amphibians. Boys and girls, let's talk about what things we noticed that were alike and different in these stories. Hold them up here. Oops. All right. All right, who would like to tell me something first? Okay, Nora, get us started. Yes, you're right. This story has photographs for its picture, and this one has sketchings or drawings. All right, good. That's a big difference when we contrast or tell how these are different. Okay, what else? Okay. All right, that's true. Very good, Sal. All right, Sal noticed that the things that are talked about in this story are all true. So what did we call those again? Huxley, if we can prove it's true, it's called a fact. It's a fact. Let's get an example from in the text. All right, this says, many toads and frogs lay their eggs in water, where the eggs hatch into tadpoles. Could that be proven? Sure it could. A scientist or someone who studies nature, or one of us, could observe a frog or toad laying eggs in the water, and we could watch them or set up a camera and see that they hatch into tadpoles. So we could have proof or evidence of that happening. So we know it's a fact. We didn't say someone thinks that frog eggs look a little bit gross. We can't prove that. That's just something someone might think. But what was said here could be proven. So this book is made up of facts, things we know are true. All right. What else do we notice about this story? Who would like to add something? Okay, Danielle, go ahead. Yes, that's right. Frogs and toads do not talk, and they do not sleep in beds. Only in what kind of story did you say? Good job, Daniel. Only in make-believe stories. Boys and girls, are we on to something? I think we are. When we read this story, we found out that it was made up of true facts that can be proven. That makes this an informational story. So the author wrote this book to try to teach us something. And the big idea in this book was about frogs, tadpoles, and toads. Good. This story is make-believe. It's made up from someone's imagination. It has characters, a setting. It had a problem. It had a solution. It sure did. And it even taught us something. Because make-believe stories can teach us something. They can be make-believe, but still help us think about important ideas. But we're not going to really see a frog and a toad visiting with each other. We're not going to see a frog or a toad picking up their house, at least in this way, not their clothing. Yeah, we could see them catch a fly and eat it, like we did in this story. But they're not going to have dishes to wash. Nope. Lucky them, huh? All right, boys and girls. So today what we did is we read 2 stories. Then we thought about them. We thought about what things in these stories were alike and what things were different. And by doing that, we could come up with a conclusion that Days with Frog and Toad, the story called Tomorrow, was make-believe. The author was entertaining us and teaching us something about life. This story, Frogs and Toads and Tadpoles 2, was an informational story that taught us facts, things that we can know about to help us come up with our own thoughts and ideas. All right, boys and girls, I'm proud of you for doing that today. Great job and keep up the good work.